Good evening, everybody. It is now 6 p.m. We still are waiting on one more member of the commission. It's customary for us to wait a few more minutes. If after 6:05 she's still not here, we'll just begin the meeting, okay? So let's give her a few minutes. Thank you so much. Barnes in the audience? All right, thank you so much. And what about John Gilmore? All right, good evening, both of you gentlemen. All right, good evening, everybody. It is now 6:02 p.m. Good evening and welcome to the City of Boynton Beach City Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 18th, 2025, and this meeting is officially called to order. Before I proceed any further, I just want to remind everybody of our rules of civility and decorum. Speakers must first be addressed by the chair and not interrupt any other speakers. Public comments must be addressed to the board as a whole and not to any particular individual on the dais or in the audience. Personal attacks, insults are strictly prohibited. Disruptive behaviors are strictly prohibited. Should you violate these rules, you may be asked to leave these chambers. Let's begin now with our roll call. If I could turn to our city clerk for the roll call.
Mayor Pansarga.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kelly.
Here.
Commissioner Cruz.
Here.
Commissioner Hay.
Here.
Commissioner Turkin.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Maylee. Our invocation this evening will be led by Pastor Jeff Kelly of First Baptist Church of Boynton Beach, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag led by Vice Mayor Amy Kelly. Let's all stand for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you for joining us this evening, Pastor.
Thank you for having me. Join me in prayer. Almighty God, we come to you today at the start of another meeting of this city commission, and we remember that you have been especially kind to us in giving us so many blessings. Father, this community, this government, the public servants in this room, the talents and abilities to serve this city, we give you thanks for all of this comes from you. Father, we thank you for the diversity and beauty that is represented in the people of our community. And we thank you for those that work to protect and care for this city. So now as we begin this meeting, we pray that you would give favor on this time and on the work of this gathering. We pray that you would give wisdom and guidance. We pray for the good of this city. We pray that this meeting would be beneficial and helpful and that those involved would be charitable amidst disagreements. Father, we pray for your favor tonight. And I pray all this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you so much, everybody. We're going to move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is agenda approval, additions, deletions, and corrections. Let me begin on my left this time with Commissioner Turkin, if you have any requests for additions. All right, what about Commissioner Hay? Did you have any requests?
No.
All right, Vice Mayor?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to add to maybe the next meeting in March, a conversation about taking a legislative break in June like we did last year.
All right.
So I'd like to have that conversation maybe at the next
Legislative
March
break
meeting.
for June.
Correct.
All right, no objections to that from my colleagues? I'm seeing no objections. We'll add that to future agenda for discussion then. Anything else? Any other requests? No?
Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Cruz?
Yes, Mayor, since I know I have constituents here for item 10C, I would like to move it up to prior to public hearing, if possible.
Item 10C, discussion regarding construction hours near residential locations. Moving it, your request is to move it up to
Before 8.
before 8. I have no objections to that personally. What about my colleagues? Anybody have any objections? All right, thank you so much. If there's nothing else from my colleagues, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as
Moved.
amended?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The second came from Vice Mayor. All those in favor of approving the amended agenda, say aye. Aye. Anyone object? Motion passes unanimously, and we've got an agenda. Moving on to informational items by members of the City Commission. Let me begin on my right this time with Commissioner Cruz, if you have any informational items.
I do not have any.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. What about you, Vice Mayor?
No, Mayor, I do not.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you, Commissioner Hay.
Yes, I would like to, in continuing my comments on Black History Month. Tonight, I want to bring my comments to our home city of Boynton Beach. Boynton Beach is a city of many firsts when it comes to Black history. The first Black police officer in Boynton Beach was Officer Willie Butler, AKA Officer Bill Butler. Officer Bill Butler was forbidden in the white community. He could not arrest white folks. He had to drive his own personal car to patrol the Black community only. The police department would not give him a police patrol car. Next, many of you remember Dr. Samuel Lamar Wright, Sr. Dr. Lamar Wright is a native Floridian. He grew up right here in Boynton Beach. Lamar Wright was the first Black city councilman in Boynton Beach. He later moved to Tampa in 1985, where he served as a professor at the University of South Florida. Then we have Isa Hester, which the center is named after. He was the first appointed African-American city mayor in Boynton Beach in 1988. And then there was Miss Lillian Otis, who is my blood sister. She was a teacher, school teacher, and a city councilman. Miss Lillian Otis was the first Black female city commissioner in Boynton Beach. Ms. Otis was instrumental in initiating the city's first Black Awareness Celebration in 1980. She produced a gospel concert that has evolved in what is known as the Heritage Festival held every February. Next, we have Perry Patterson, was the first Black firefighter in Boynton Beach Fire Department. He is the brother of Sister Melinda Collins of New Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church right here in Boynton Beach. Then we have a young lady by the name of Natasha Denise Clemens. Natasha is the first Black female to be a deputy fire chief in Boynton Beach. Natasha Clemens is a hometown girl from a small section of our city known as Cherry Hill, right here in Boynton Beach. Boynton Beach is the only city that I know of in this country that has two Heisman Trophy winners. Lamar Jackson was the first Heisman Trophy winner, and you get the Heisman Trophy winner by being the best NFL player in the country. And secondly, we now have Travis Hunter, who played with our own little Bulldogs right here in Boynton Beach. Then there's yours truly, Commissioner Woodrow L. Hay. I'm the first ordained minister to serve as city mayor, vice mayor, and as commissioner here in Boynton Beach. I'm still learning a lot about my own heritage. Recently, I read about Gloria Gilmer, who was the first black female mathematician to have her papers in the Library of Congress manuscript collection. Listen, there are many, many, many others that I could mention. We as African Americans have a rich history right here in Boynton Beach, right here in Boynton Beach. Then there's yours truly. Oh,
We've got an echo.
Commissioner Woodrow
Let's give it
L.
one
Hay.
moment, Commissioner.
I'm the first. We as African Americans have a rich history and proud to tell the world about it. Hear this, ladies and gentlemen. Black history is American history. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much, Commissioner. Hey, Commissioner Turkin, do you have any informational items? No. All right, thank you so much. The next portion of the agenda are for announcements, community and special events, and presentations. We have two proclamations this evening, one for 211 Awareness Month, and the second for the Lord's Place Sleep Out to end Homelessness Awareness Day. Let me begin with 211, and let's bring up the proclamation so I can read it into the record. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas 211 Helpline and Crisis Line continues to be that beacon of hope, providing life-saving crisis support and guidance when people are overwhelmed and don't know where to turn, and whereas people of all ages and walks of life are reaching out about their growing struggles and mental and emotional health, addiction, housing, health, and other concerns, 211 staff listen to each and every person to provide valuable resource options and to help them strategize and problem solve. And whereas 211 also has specialized advocacy and support programs for the community that include caregiver support, Help Me Grow, and 211's life-saving Sunshine Daily phone calls, which continue to brighten the lives of isolated seniors and caregivers. And whereas 211 also responds to the 988 Lifeline number and support lines that include first responders and My Florida Vet for veterans, with peer-to-peer support providing assistance to these specialized groups and their families. Now, therefore, I, Ty Pensurga, Mayor of the City of Boynton Beach, hereby proclaim February 18, there's a typo here, we gotta fix it, February 18th, 2025, as 211 Awareness Month. Thank you so much for all the great work that you do. I'm going to ask now Mr. Ty Barnes if you could come up to accept this proclamation and if you'd like to say a few words about the great work that you are doing. Let me come down and give this to you.
So thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for this recognition and for helping raise 211 awareness. 211 is the only 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week crisis line serving our community. Last year, we took nearly 120,000 calls for help. we responded, just to give you some idea of the impact in the Boynton Beach community, we responded to 6,700 needs or problems from community members. Over a third of those were housing related, so about, over 2,300 housing related problems and needs from within the community. Followed by 17% were substance abuse, mental health disorders, and over 10% of those were for utility assistance. So you're looking at close to 750 callers with needs related to utility assistance just within our community. And as the mayor mentioned, we do respond to taking calls from the National 988 Suicide Hotline. 65 of those calls were suicide-related calls here in the Boynton Beach community last year. So anyone facing these struggles can get a caring voice, and they can get concrete help. In addition to suicide prevention and crisis intervention, we have programs for children with special needs, for their parents, for caregivers, for elderly in our community, veterans and first responders. And we do all that by maintaining a database of over 1,600 agencies with literally thousands of resources for members of our community. In short, every hour of every day, 365 days a year, our team is here to help, and we're accessible via call, text, or chat. Thank all of you again for this recognition and helping ensure that everyone knows that 211 is here to help them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next proclamation for this evening is for the Lord's Place, another organization that is near and dear to my heart. The proclamation reads as follows: homelessness is a serious social and economic issue impacting all levels of our society. The city of Boynton Beach and the Lord's Place recognize that all people deserve respect and a place to call home. And whereas the city of Boynton Beach and the Lord's Place are partners in providing that respect and pathway to a brighter future for men, women, and families who are homeless in our community. And whereas the city of Boynton Beach extends its appreciation to the Lord's Place for its leadership on this critical social issue and its wide array of successful programs and services, changing the lives of the homeless one life at a time. And whereas the Lord's Place will hold its inaugural 5K march to end homelessness on Friday, February 28th, 2025, at 2 p.m., commencing at 2808 North Australian Avenue and concluding with a ceremony program at 4 through 6 p.m. at Centennial Square at 150 North Clematis in West Palm Beach. The Lord's Place and the city of Boynton Beach recognize that many community members supporting Sleep Out, including the Honorable Ann Brown, and whereas the mission of the Lord's Place is to break the cycle of homelessness by providing innovative, compassionate, and effective services to men, women, and children in our community. Now, therefore, I, Ty Pensurga, Mayor of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, do hereby proclaim February 28th, 2025 as the Lord's Place Sleep Out to End Homelessness Awareness Day. So I want to present this to Mr. John Gilmore of the Lord's Place. Thank you so much for the great work that you're doing. I've had the opportunity to visit the center, so have my colleagues, and you are doing phenomenal work. And we know that you've got a center here in Boynton Beach, so if you could just share a few words about the great work that you're doing in our city. So thank you so much.
My name is John Gilman. I'm the Director of Men's Services at the Lord's Place. I would like to thank our mayor as well as other councilmen. We appreciate this award. This means a lot to us. Myself, I am the director of the campus here in Boynton Beach, where we service 50 men.
John, would you mind coming closer to the mic so we can hear you better?
Hello, better?
There we go.
Okay. Once again, my name is John Gilman, the Director of Men's Services at the Lord's Place. It gives us a great privilege to service clients in this community because we do have a men's campus right here in Boynton Beach. There, we service 50 men that's either returning citizens from Palm Beach Sheriff Office, Department of Corrections, homeless, people from the Lewis Center, clients who have mental illness and substance abuse program. We have 3 case managers, and I have an array of case peer specialists that had a lived experience that service our clients and help them with moving forward. We have a very successful rate. We have a lot of people. We had over 80 clients that leave our program and return with family, get their own apartments, and move on with their lives. Actually, it's been 90%, so we just went up. So we look forward to continue to service people in this community and turn them from wherever they came from, whatever walks of life, to tax-paying citizens with jobs and moving forward without causing any kind of recidivation back to our criminal justice system. So it's a great honor to lead that program and lead the Lord's Place. And on behalf of the Lord's Place, we would like to thank you and welcome you to come out to our March for Ending Homelessness on February 28th, whereas our goal is to raise a minimum of $350,000, and the Honorable Ann Brown is going to match every dollar to double that for us. So we thank you, and we look forward to continue partnering here in Boynton Beach and continue to make this community a great community to live in.
Thank you. Well-deserved proclamations. Let's move on now to the next portion of the agenda, which is public audience. As always, the same rules apply. We have 2 podium. State your name for the record. Each person has 3 minutes. After we conclude with those in the room, we'll go to those online. And let me get the timer ready. Okay. Good evening.
Shaking it up tonight, huh? Susan Oyer, Boynton Beach. So I wanted to note, in case people aren't aware, we had our 13th shooting of the year, Sunday night, about 12:36 in the Sandcastle area. So I hope we are going to continue to go back and fix whatever was wrong, because we went several weeks without any problems. My topic of the night is transparency and the need for it. So I'm quite disturbed because, as you know, I'm quite the environmentalist, and I'm always sending you guys emails and tagging you guys in on social media stuff about whatever cool issue is out there that I think you guys should be looking at. But I was quite distressed, and I thank you, Barbara, for catching this. The city of Boynton has had to dig a deeper well to access water because our top well that we've been using is going dry or is running short of water. We are in a drought. I don't see the city doing anything. So I'm constantly stepping up about this and saying we need to stop building apartments. We cannot put any more showers and toilets and dishwashers and washing machines in this city. If we are digging deeper wells to access water, that means there's no water. And there's stories coming out in newspapers over in Tampa and across the state, because I get Florida Trend, and I don't know if you guys do or not, but there's been a lot of talk about how the state is running out of water. So what are we doing? We're one of the old original cities. We are leaders. We should not be following. What are you guys going to do? In addition to stopping all this insane building of apartments that we so don't need, because now, oh, guess what? There's as many people moving out of the state as there are moving in. So obviously we have enough housing. It just needs to be redistributed. But we need to be changing our codes for more water-saving options. Another issue that I take issue on is 7B tonight on the consent agenda. They're putting in, what is this, $953,516.55 on the consent agenda without any discussion. Not that this is not a valid issue, but how are we spending almost $1 million on a consent agenda item? So this is just unacceptable when it comes to transparency. And when are we going to finish our code issues? You guys brought up, having a limit of the trees near any kind of lines, but did it ever get finished? Did you ever decide on 10 feet or 25 feet? Did you ever pick a date for that to go into effect? What about the whole AstroTurf issue? Has that ever come to a resolution? You need to finish this. The carport codes, which that poor man comes up every week. I want to cry when I listen to him. And are we sending out our rules yet? Because I know Dan had been working on this, having a brochure for all the new residents to the city that tells you basic rules, like what you need a permit for and what you don't. So these are easy things to fix, but transparency is the key, and here's a gift for each of you.
Thank you so much. All right, next speaker, State your name for the record and begin when you're ready.
My name is Cindy Falco Di Corrado, and I'd like to talk about professional misconduct. Last week, as I watched the last meeting, it was a little bit very unprofessional in this room. So I'd like to talk about what professional misconduct is, which each of you on this dais has participated in one way or another. It is imperative that each of you be re-educated in what is professional behavior, to learn how to govern yourselves accordingly. As you know, I was assaulted right here in this very room by Sergeant Gene Weddy, who I see who's out there still. And all of you are witnesses, what you saw sitting in this room, me being attacked. The disrespect, the disregard of we the people, the American people, not a color, a people. Gross negligence or incompetence, breaching of confidentiality, keeping poor records, abusive behaviors, falsifying records, conflict of interests, misrepresentation, failing to meet professional obligations, practicing beyond one's qualifications, and engaging in romantic relationships with fellow coworkers. You might ask, who defines these professional misconducts? Well, I'll tell you who. The professional bodies, the regulatory agencies, and the law. It's very sad to come in here sometimes and see what's going on with people we are to be respecting and to fight for us and do right by us. While I was on the subject, I also would like to thank those who did support me in the comments on the Boynton Beach Gone Wild. Thank you very much for all your comments of support of the abuse that I had to put up with and was done in this very room. Now I'd like to bring up another issue in regards to FOIAs. That's the Freedom of Information Act, which is a request for information. Falsifying a FOIA can lead to criminal penalties, including a fine up to $5,000 or imprisonment. It is a federal law that grants we the people the right to request records from any United States agency. Did you know that the City of Boynton Beach Police Department, out of all the municipalities in Florida, has the most lawsuits against them? Well, as you know, my document was forged. It was not done accurately. It was done under perjury, and they lied on that document. So I attribute this to poor leadership. Falsifying a FOIA also includes an incident report, your discovery, withholding the information, saying you lost the video documents like I was told until somebody had integrity and finally got me my video of what was going on in this room because you can no longer find it. That's removing information. That's criminal. We the people must do better at holding elected government officials, employees accountable. It's our duty. It's not a cultural or shade of skin color issue. It is crimes against the American people. That is you and that is me. If it has been done to one of us, then it's been done to all of us. It goes to the very core of our freedoms. We the people must unite. United we stand, divided we fall. Let's not fall into this pit again.
Thank you. Next speaker. Either side. Oh, you're going to pass that out? That's fine.
Thank you. I'm gonna wait till you guys get it, or I can start.
You may begin whenever you're ready.
Okay. My name is Renstein. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and everyone here tonight. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak about something that affects all of us, how hard it is to use our city's websites. These sites are important for residents, business owners, and visitors, and we need serious improvements. Let's take the property appraiser's website. It's easy to use. It has a language bar at the top, so people who don't speak English can still navigate the site. There's also a font size tool, which makes it easy for people to have trouble seeing. Now, let's take an example with the BoyntonBeach.org website. Key, it's Boynton-beach.org, which needs improvement. Right now, the top of the homepage is empty. Two, the language bar is at the bottom, making it harder to find. While the site does support 248 languages, you have to zoom out to actually see all 248 languages. Why do we have 248 languages when our staff doesn't speak most of those languages? We should have it similar to the property appraiser's website, where it's for the majority, French, Haitian Creole, and Spanish. Now, for the biggest problem, the sagesgov.website. This site is where homeowners must go to fill out applications just to rent their property, yet there is no language bar at all. Imagine someone trying to use the website who doesn't speak English. They might have to take time off of work just to come to City Hall for help. They should have been able to get online. What makes this even worse is that Google Translate is free, yet it hasn't been added to the SAGE's website. Now, let's talk about something even more confusing. Boynton-beach.org. Why, when we go to boyntonbeach.org, it goes to Boca Raton's Chamber of Commerce? Who's in charge of this? This is a huge problem for our city's reputation. If someone's looking for official information and ends up in Boca Raton instead of our website, it makes us look unorganized and unprofessional. We need answers. Who is managing the website? Was this done on purpose or by mistake? And how can we fix this quickly? Boynton Beach deserves a strong, reliable online presence, not a confusing mess. As a city, we can and must do better. I asked the mayor and commissioners to make fixing these websites a priority, moving the language bar to the top, adding clear buttons, and using Google Translate will help thousands of people, and we must fix boyntonbeach.org so it directs people to the right place. Boynton Beach is a great city, and our website should reflect that. I look forward to seeing these changes. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you again, guys.
Thank you. All right, next speaker, anyone else inside the chambers?
Mayor, if I can I know
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I have some of my constituents here for, if you want to do public comment about that or anything else, this would be the time to do it. So it's now or never. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that, Commissioner. Like all speakers, it's 3 minutes per person. No, I'm glad you clarified that. That's a good thing. All right. Either one of you, we do have 2 podiums. Yeah. State your name for the record and begin when you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Beth Sanzone. I live at 120 Lake Monterey Circle, and this is about item 10D, the construction hours near residential locations. As someone who lives just 40 feet from a huge warehouse that is being built at Egret Point, 3800 South Congress Avenue, I have firsthand knowledge of how loud and disruptive construction is. In the past 8 months, I've experienced, and actually my entire community has experienced these things. Heavy equipment moving as early as 6:15 a.m., shaking our entire buildings, and I mean rattling the lights that are hanging from our ceilings, rattling the windows. I feel it shaking in my sofa, which is on the other side of the house. And literally, the pictures on my walls have been tilted. I've had to fix them multiple times. Loud grinding concrete from the old building, the plumes of dust so thick, it looks like a fire. I've had headaches and a hard time breathing for more than 6 weeks. That was early in the construction. Most recently, loud pounding all day, even on a Saturday when everybody's home. My neighbors are trying to enjoy themselves, trying to have a peaceful Saturday, and there's no such thing. Trucks beeping all day long as they're backing up. And the cement pours from midnight to 4 a.m. when residents are sleeping, just 25 to 40 feet from where those pours are happening. It was bad. It woke me up. It woke up other people in our community. It was definitely not a good thing. And I'm very disappointed that the city actually issued that special permit for the cement pours. Boynton Beach currently allows construction noise until 10 p.m. at night. 10 p.m. Can you imagine having a 1-year-old and you're trying to put that 1-year-old to sleep and there's construction noise going on? That's just not acceptable. Most towns in our areas restrict noise to ending by 8 p.m., most. Construction noise has disrupted my working from home, my sleep, and my ability to enjoy my property. I, like many people, have paid my taxes, and I would like to know that my city commissioners are looking out for me, as well as my fellow residents.
Thank you.
Please vote against, or please vote for the revised hours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker?
Hello, Commission. My name's Amelia, and I live at 165 Lake Monterey Circle. My home is directly behind one of these gigantic eyesores that have been approved to be there. I'm not going to talk about what happened the last 8 months because we've lived it. Right now, our most pressing issue is that special permit is done, but the noise that is still allowed until I thought it was 12 o'clock, it might be different, is ridiculous. We have children in our neighborhood who during these 8 months have been woken up continuously. Adults who don't, I personally get off of work at 2 o'clock in the morning to go home. A home is different from a house. A home is somewhere where you should be able to go at the end of the day and find peace. Yet, my neighbors are avoiding their home during the day. They can't find peace there. I go home and I worry about how I'm gonna come home to my house at the end of the day. When I have my days off, I don't get to enjoy my house. I can't watch TV in peace. I can't just be in my home listening or having silence because of construction all day long. I get home at 2 o'clock in the morning and I shower and I get ready for bed and to lay my head on that pillow. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, be greeted by construction noise. Finally be able to sleep and get woken up at 4, 5, to then wake up and have to do a day of work. I don't get how anybody's supposed to be productive, let alone be able to have thoughts when construction is allowed to go on till 12. They have violated the sound restraint before. To allow it to keep going on to the late hours of the morning is unacceptable. Please change this.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers? Last call. Let's go to those online. I see one person online. There is a Mike K. Mike, you may unmute yourself, and I will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining since you're online. Begin by stating your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Mike Newer. I live at 57 Vista Del Rio. And the last time I had an issue with my neighbors that were spying into my backyard with video cameras, the city and the police did nothing until I came to a city council meeting. So here I am again with another issue that has been unresolved and refused to be addressed. The leash law in Palm Beach County. I've documented multiple violations of my neighbor with their German Shepherd running loose around the property and behind the house, not in their fenced-in backyard, running on the easement, and no one has done anything about it. When Liz was still working with Boynton Beach, she sent them an official warning letter, and then when she retired, I guess it went to code enforcement, and they have refused to do anything about it. I've sent video documentation as well as multiple emails, and nothing's been done. So I'm just here to plead with you for the safety of our neighborhood and for the upholding the laws in Palm Beach County to please have someone look into this and stop them from letting their dog just run around loose all the time. It's really dangerous for the neighborhood. There's kids in the neighborhood. There's people that have small dogs that they walk them on leashes, and to have this German Shepherd just roaming free is unacceptable and dangerous. And just wanted to plead with the council for their help in having the code compliance people address that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I believe that's the last person for public audience. Public audience is now closed. Thank you, everybody. We're moving on to the next portion of the agenda. There's nothing under administrative. The next section is consent agenda. Are there any items that my colleagues would like to pull under consent agenda? Any requests? Commissioner Cruz?
I received a call from one of the property managers from Monterey, and he wanted me to discuss item 6C.
All right, let's pull item 6C then. All right, any other requests besides 6C? I'm hearing no other requests. May I have a motion to approve the remainder of consent agenda?
So moved.
I have
Second.
a motion from Commissioner Turkin, a second from Commissioner Cruz. All those in favor of approving the entirety of consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously. Let's now address 6C. 6C reads Proposed Resolution Number R25-047. It says to amend CIP 303 Fund Project Number RP 2416 from $73,234 to $88,234 by utilizing $15K from fund balance to cover for a change order for a total amount of $203,080.80 for unforeseen issues during the construction of Little League/High Point privacy wall construction. Mr. Ramsey, is there anyone from staff that'd like to begin, or let's begin with Mr. Ramsey? Andrew, would you like to begin?
Can I, is it okay?
Isn't that 6C?
Yes, I just wanted to make a few comments.
Sure, go ahead. If you want to begin, that's fine.
Yep. So, as you know, Kevin, you've been to the town halls with me, and I know some of you have. Andrew's been there too. I have a significant concern in my district, specifically related to Monterey, the construction, the noise, and the light that's affecting my district right now. It was brought to my attention that, we're building a wall nearby another residential area, which I think is a great thing to do. So at the same time, I've received questions from my constituents asking, what about us? What about Monterey? When does Monterey get their privacy wall? And at what point does Monterey get the same benefit of having a privacy wall to protect from the noise and from the lighting nearby? I know that's something that many of you, as you're nodding your heads, we've discussed in the past. You want that privacy wall. The current project is only like 6 foot. And can you tell me how many feet this wall is going to be?
Wall is completed.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you from the mic. Could you come closer?
The wall that we're talking about in 6C is the Little League wall. That's completed. That was done probably 2 months ago. It's 2.5 months ago. You want to know how tall it is? It's 6 feet.
It's 6 feet.
Just 6 foot tall.
The same thing as the other one. Okay. So the community in Monterey wants the wall by their property to be taller. And so I wanted to maybe have discussions with staff to talk about that, because, what can we do? I know they're here today, and they've asked me these questions multiple times. I've had town halls with them that last over 2 hours. What can we do to help this community? So, since we're here talking about it, I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but I do want to open up that question of what can we do with potentially sending away some funding to help that project so that the community of Monterey can have the privacy that they need with regard to the noise and the light.
Thank you, Commissioner. The particular wall that we're talking about is on the city's property, which is delineated from the High Point residence. So
Yeah.
the situation I think you're mentioning in Monterey is too private.
Yeah.
So the city can't really spend funds on the private property. So that was something that I believe they already have a privacy wall there, correct?
6
As a
feet.
part that, so.
Yeah.
They will.
It's 6 feet, but according to my constituents, that's not enough. All right, well, I guess we're gonna have to go about it a different way.
Commissioner Cruz? Thank you so much. I would like to make a recommendation, if that's all right. I can tell that this is going to be a much longer conversation, a very important and needed conversation. If you're comfortable, would that be something we could add to another item for today's agenda?
Yeah.
Or a future agenda?
Yeah, we can add it.
Because I realize this is it requires more information. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
But absolutely right, we do need to have that discussion.
Okay.
All right.
That's all. That was it. Thank you.
All right.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes,
I think
Commissioner.
part of this might be, maybe staff can reach out to that developer doing that industrial space And maybe, you know, in good faith, they can provide that for the residents since the city can't because of the private property.
I've already asked for that, and they said it costs too much money, so
Okay, well.
I've
maybe-
been working
maybe
with them. Yeah.
Squeaky wheel gets the oil, so maybe we keep asking.
Yeah, I thank you for that. I had another thought, and maybe we can add this to a future meeting, as you stated, Mayor, but I would like to add maybe to a future commission meeting if we could discuss the R fee. I know it's been stated before by yourself to talk about infrastructure improvements in addition to code and things of that nature. Could we have that discussion in the future and seeing if it's something that we can expand to potentially help residents when we have funding available that is for things that aren't always per se, like art is great, but like a wall of privacy and protection for noise and for quality of life has so much more value. So I was wondering if we could potentially expand that definition and have that discussion, hopefully maybe by next meeting, so that we can at least just have that discussion and talk about it.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, I don't know why it's not on the agenda yet. I asked about this in December with regards to historic preservation. So maybe this is a future agenda item with a wider scope, you know, to include this exact situation, right? Because I think if I'm a resident, and I'm sorry for what you guys are going through, you know, from the bottom of my heart, that's got to be annoying, especially to the woman who has to work till 2 a.m. If it's a matter of having a privacy wall or a piece of art, I think the more operational necessary thing is that privacy wall, right? So I think if I'm a resident, I'm going to be more focused on infrastructure and my quality of life than a piece of art that I'm going to get to work, whether it's there or not. So I would love to have that conversation. I'd love to see it on the next agenda.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, both of you. Again, this is a much longer conversation that's much needed. I know we do have another item on the agenda today about construction hours and probably noise as well. I think all of that is related to construction, so I think that is the more appropriate item that I would combine it with, and then you can talk about funding mechanisms thereafter. But I would pull that together with all things construction related. Okay, thank you so much. Now, the item 6C was pulled. Was there any other comments regarding 6C?
No further from me. I'll just go ahead and make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve
Second.
item 6C and a second from Commissioner Turkin. All those in favor of approving item 6C, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're now moving on to consent bids and purchases over $100,000. Are there any items that my colleagues would like to pull? Commissioner Turkin?
Yeah, I'd like to pull 7C.
7C. Okay, we have a request for 7C. What about you, Vice Mayor?
7B, please, thank you.
7B. All right, any other request items to be pulled under this section? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the remainder of consent bids and purchases? We have a motion from Commissioner Hay and
Second.
a second from Commissioner Cruz. All those in favor of approving the remainder of consent bids and purchases, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Let's now address them in order. First item is 7B. This is it's a very lengthy title, but this is for the resolution R25-049. It's to approve a task order for professional engineering services, including survey, permitting assistance, design services, and construction management support for Sea Meadow South Water and Wastewater Improvement Project. All right, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, City Management. Vice Mayor Kelly, if you'd like to start with what question you have regarding it.
Yes.
I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself?
Keith Weber, Assistant Director, Utilities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Keith. I pulled this item. Sea Meadow is a neighborhood in my district, and this is something that I have fielded many phone calls from residents with issues having to do with our utilities, and we took over that neighborhood several years ago, and at the time didn't make the necessary improvements, and so I just kind of wanted just a summary for the public to hear, the investment that we're making in, in that neighborhood. Thank you.
So it's a large investment that Utilities is moving forward with. This specific project is to do what we consider Sea Meadow south of Congress, at the intersection of Congress and Lawrence. It is to replace all of the sewer and water utilities in Sea Meadows. Currently, the water utilities inside Sea Meadows, there's not current adequate fire flow in there. Most of the mains in there are 2-inch or 4-inch. There's not an adequate amount of fire hydrants in there, and a lot of the water mains are currently between the trailers, which ideally the water mains would be located in the street. The sewer mains on the south side for Sea Meadows as well, all of the sewer mains are located currently between the trailers, which creates a serious issue because, one, they're very difficult to access when there's issues with them, as well as there's currently no cleanouts, whether it be city-owned, because the city didn't used to own the Sea Meadows utilities. We took that over and we purchased it approximately 10 years ago. So there was no cleanouts on that. So now when there's any issues with the customer's lateral, it's very difficult to distinguish whether the issue with the sewer is the customer's or if it's the city's. With this project, we'll be moving all of the sewer mains to the streets and adding cleanouts, both city-owned and customer-owned. So in the future, if there are any issues, we can distinguish whether the issue is the customer's or ours.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, this is an important project to bring that, to the street. So I'm glad that we're investing in the utility infrastructure in that neighborhood. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good night.
Thank you. Were there any other questions? Seeing none, Vice Mayor, would you like to make the motion to approve item 7B?
Motion to approve 7B.
Second.
Second came from Commissioner Turkin. All those in favor of approving item 7B, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, we're now moving on to the next pulled agenda item, which is 7C. This is proposed resolution number R25-050. It is to award a task order and approve a budget amendment to appropriate funds for Craven Thompson and Associates for the preliminary design of South Seacrest streetscape improvements in the amount of $161K. All right, thank you so much. Good evening.
Hello. Rick Hoffer, Assistant Director of Public Works.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Andrew, I know you know probably better than anyone in this city how much of a time coming this project is. This is a problem that has been neglected probably 30, I won't want to say neglected, but been an issue for 30 years, right, because of the jurisdiction of Seacrest Road, which is a county road for those in the public. Our hands are tied. So, Andrew, can you just walk through how we got here and how this is the beginning of the first step of a long overdue issue?
Sure. Actually, when I started my career with the city, one of the first projects I did was the improvements to the north on Seacrest from Boynton Beach Boulevard to the C-16 canal. So very familiar with the project. This project simply is just a continuation of that project, which is going to move south. So we're going to be looking at doing curb and gutter sections, beautification within the medians, access control all along the corridor from Boynton Beach Boulevard to Woolbright. And you are correct, this project was planned, these projects were planned like 20 years ago. And we recently, like I said, finished that one, I think it was in 2010, 2011 timeframe. And now this one, getting to this one, I think is pretty awesome for myself, seeing that last project completed to see this one. And this is definitely one that's needed, that this corridor, we have a lot of swale sections in this area. So I think the project will be a lot, it will help clean up beautify the area as well as control traffic and speeding on that section of the road. Once we finish this, we will, and again, this is just for conceptual designs, engagement with the community to get their feedback on the design, what they would like to see to make sure that, what improvements we're putting in or proposing with the county doesn't impact their lives. The other thing that we're working with the county on is that once we get these preliminary designs, we're going to turn them over to the county and they're going to put them in their 5-year work plan. So they will take our initial designs and then they'll work it into their work plan to get the completed work.
And they're going to pay for it.
And it should be in their fence, yes.
That's
We will
the
have
big
some costs. There are some things that the county won't pay for, like the landscaping and some of the beautification efforts. We'll have to partner with them on that, which is typical, which is what we did on the north side as well.
Awesome. Yeah, long time coming. Happy to get this moving forward. Hopefully my colleagues join me in this venture. You already mentioned it. We're going to have that community input from the Forest Park neighborhood. We'll reach out to Doug. I know he's excited about this as well. And then I know Commissioner Marcy Woodward was a big help to get this thing moving, so kudos to her.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for staff on this item? Seeing none, would you like to make the motion, Commissioner?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second came from Commissioner Hay. All those in favor of approving item 7C, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, so that concludes consent bids and purchases. We have rearranged the order of the agenda to move up item 10C to before public hearing. So let's now address 10C. 10C is discussion regarding construction hours near residential locations. Who would like to kick that off? I see we've got staff coming up. I believe there is a PowerPoint, if I remember correctly. Yes, sir. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Commissioners. In order to help facilitate this discussion item for the City Commission, staff worked with Commissioner Cruz to prepare a brief PowerPoint outlining an analysis of a number of cities and their construction times and some of their exemptions.
So good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commission, City Management. Pat Hart, Community Standards Supervisor. We did put together a list of 8 cities in South Florida, their construction times and their exemptions. As you can see, our first one is ours, which is based off of noise. We don't particularly have a construction schedule, although we do not allow construction on Sundays and major holidays. So we have a noise ordinance that allows construction from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. in our city. Monday through Saturday. Sundays is not allowed, again, neither are major holidays. The other cities that we have, the other 8 ones, and I'll go ahead and switch to the next one, are pretty much the same. They have a few other hours that are a little bit earlier, and they change their hours on the weekends, but ours are pretty cut and dry with some of their exemptions. We do have exemptions on for early hour work, which Mr. Kunzman can discuss, which for concrete pours and such things like that, which tend to be a safety issue and allow things to go faster, even though sometimes, you know, it's not the most well-received.
Can we go back to the previous page? Thank
Yes,
you so
ma'am.
much. First of all, I wanted to thank all of our staff for taking the time to doing this research. It's really important, and also thank each and every one of you who showed up at the town hall meeting at Monterey. We know these are really, really tough conversations to have, especially knowing discomfort doesn't explain it. You know, it's just a complete obstruction of the peace and sleep and quiet of my constituents. So hearing their concerns and having multiple conversations with them, you know, I think it's my duty to stand up for my constituents and do something that is going to benefit, you know, not only this project specifically, but potentially future projects as we move forward with regard to construction hours. But I'll let you start your presentation.
As of right now, we currently have somebody randomly going out once a week to the Monterey property at 6 a.m. Until 7 a.m. to listen for early work. As of now, we have not caught anybody or them working. We've also, you know, obviously I've talked to our police department, had the meeting with them. They have gotten with me one time where they had a concern, which we did address with the construction company. But since then, we have had, you know, no complaints or any found early work.
Thank you so much. So looking at the statute for Boynton Beach, and really getting to the meat and potatoes of how we got to having construction in my district from midnight till 4 in the morning. You know, I do want to say that citizens have a right to a peaceful home, and I think that us approving that construction takes that away from them. So I think we definitely owe a duty to make a change, specifically when we have properties adjacent to residential areas, specifically within a certain number of feet, and thank you for doing that research. But the statute states these construction hours can be changed for a period of time with the submission and approval of a noise mitigation waiver from the city of Boynton Beach. Could someone please walk me through the process of getting a noise mitigation waiver, and who gets to approve that?
Sure. John Kunzman, building official and director of the building department.
We have used a waiver form. It was created when City Hall was constructed. I used that as a blueprint of creating a document, an application, and the contractor has to agree and acknowledge several points, okay? Some of the items are for the noise mitigation plan. They have to show the location of the primary entrance and exits, locate tire washouts, construction, fence, screening to reduce the noise, and it has to be maintained. Also locate the employee parking and verify police and emergency vehicle access. The contractor also has to notify the building department and police department 1 business day prior to concrete pours, scheduled prior to normal working hours. All trucks are to disable the audible backup alarms and state they're going to use white noise backup alarms, flagmen anytime the backup alarms are disabled, and that complies with the OSHA requirements. When a backup alarm is not available, a flagman needs to be in place per OSHA. Also, they're not to use horns, megaphones, or loudspeaker systems. Any site lighting is to be turned inboard and down, so there is no flood of lighting into adjacent properties. And the contractor will keep the fire department and emergency vehicle access available throughout the site. This project, the contractor also provided PD on site while they're doing the pours, so they maintain compliance for these requirements. Okay. We used the same waiver when Riverwalk was constructed on Woolbright and Federal Highway. The contractors also are required to have a complaint line that's manned anytime working hours during the morning hours while they're pouring concrete. And, we keep tabs on that. This contractor also has vibration sensors placed on the west side of the property and the south side of the property. And I've been given some of those reports. The only time that they've had high readings is when they used the rollers. And they stopped using those rollers because of they got 2 complaints that day. And they only use the rollers for compaction of driveways and parking areas. They do density tests every day to make sure that they don't need to use the vibration on the rollers. Otherwise, they just use the static.
Can I just ask a quick question while you're mentioning vibration?
Yes, sir.
Those vibration sensors that you mentioned, who owns them?
They are owned by a subcontractor. They do not own those vibration sensors.
Got it, but the people who own the sensors work for the people who are doing the construction?
Yes, they're independent and they're subcontractors.
They're independent.
They provide them the
Okay.
service.
Personally, I would feel more comfortable if the sensors were owned by the city. So when somebody says there's no issue, then we're getting it from our own information, right? And not through a third party. That's just my initial thought. I would trust that information a little bit more, or a whole lot more, knowing that it's not someone paid by the person doing all the shaking. But anyways, that was just an initial thought, but please continue your questions and comments. Commissioner Turkin.
Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're going, Mayor. I don't know if, that would put it in the city's hands that'd be more workload for Public Works, but I think maybe we could look at the city choosing the vendor,
That would work.
as a way to mitigate any bias. And then, did you guys have to keep going? Or did
I was
okay.
done.
Did you want to go? I got a couple
Any
questions. Go ahead.
Do you want to follow up, Commissioner Cruz? Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'll make
Otherwise,
my
yeah.
other comments.
Thank you. So, The purpose for bringing this up was really to provide relief to not just obviously right now, the residents of Monterey, but in the future as we build more, any residents that are within a certain number of feet of a residential area. I don't think that it's fair for any resident to have to be awake from the hours of midnight to 4 in the morning. And unfortunately, not to, I'm trying to be kind, but at the same time, I wasn't really informed about these changes happening in my own district before they happened. So there was disappointment on the side of my constituents. There was definitely also concerns on my end because I wasn't aware, and I started getting videos at 1:30 in the morning when this was happening. So the point being that with that is I would like to remove the exemption of any construction happening anytime after the designated hours, specifically related to properties that are adjacent to residential areas where the building to building distance is about, and I'll leave it to the professionals, a certain number of feet that we can definitely, come back to figure out that number. But that's the goal of today. It's really to figure out, not from property line to property line, because obviously they're adjacent to each other, so the property line space is going to be 0. But really figuring out the distance from the actual building where our residents live and sleep to where the actual building starts for whatever it is that we're building adjacent to a residential area.
Yes, if I can just add, so I think through experience with this project, it brought to the forefront a couple of issues. I would say we had a lot of concrete pours that happened. Just to put it into perspective, this is 500,000 square feet of industrial space. The slabs are substantial. I mean, we're talking number of football fields long, very complicated, 100+ cement trucks for every single pour that we were trying to remove from peak hour on Congress Avenue. And one of the things that we learned is that the closer that the work took place to the residents, the more frequent the complaints. In fact, I think there were a number of pours that occurred a substantial distance away from the residents, where most people probably didn't even know that it was actually occurring. So I think if we could come up with a number between buildings, like Commissioner Cruz said, where the work under no circumstance with an X number of feet from building to building, that no work can take place. I think that's something that we can achieve.
Well, there's something I'd like to add with that. The reason that these concrete pours take place at the hours that they do is the impact of the number of concrete trucks that are lined up. In this case here, there were probably 100 concrete trucks that were lined that had to be there for one pour. Okay, and that line of concrete trucks not only would be on site, but also on Congress Avenue. You shift that to the daytime hours, and that's going to create a huge traffic jam. Also, one of the most important things about pouring concrete at that time is that the cure time is slower. So that much concrete that they pour, they need a longer time to be able to screed it and smooth it out, so the concrete cures properly, and that there's no big humps or divots or anything in the finished slab. And having imperfections in your slab with tilt wall construction can cause a huge impact on whether that wall is going to go up plumb and straight, and possibly cause an accident happening because nothing is plumb and square. So them pouring concrete at that time is very important for the curing time, because they need to be able to manage that concrete. If they do it in the daytime, then that concrete's going to cure a lot quicker, and it's going to be a much slower process. And they'll have to do it in smaller batches, and that is not very cost effective, and it can also cause problems. And they
And
did.
I thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for,
and
and I
they-
know you guys meant well by it. Unfortunately, we have residents that pay
Understood.
mortgage, pay taxes, have
Understood.
children. We have people that work at all hours of the night, and these are our residents, and we're here, and I think it's our job to represent them and their interests, and I completely understand the business side of it and the business interest of it. But that's why we're creating a certain number of feet, right? It's not just for all construction, it's for construction within X number of feet from building to building, so that there isn't that hour, no construction being done at any time after the hours that we're setting forward with this ordinance.
Thank you. I definitely support changing the hours for the noise ordinance, but I also definitely support adding that restriction on the distance, right? Because it doesn't make sense. If you can pour concrete away from the residents, why did you have to pour it next to the resident? That's a personal question. I want to know that from staff, but we can have that conversation later. I know my colleagues are waiting. Commissioner Hay, then Commissioner Turpin.
Sorry, just last point, and this
Very
was
briefly,
the
and then
closing of my.
we're going to come back.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
But here's what I'm proposing. Our current hours are 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Saturday. What I would like to propose is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday, so that people on Saturday mornings, and this is specifically adjacent to residential areas, again, from property line to property line, not for any other, building where it's just all commercial around. It's specific to.
Can we repeat that, Commissioners, to make sure we have it right?
Of course.
8 to 8?
I'm proposing Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and then Saturday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. to give people a chance to sleep a little bit on Saturday morning instead of 7 in the morning. And then keeping the no Sunday. And this specific ordinance or specific part of the ordinance would be specifically related to any construction within a certain number of feet from building to building when we have adjacent buildings that are residential areas.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Hay, you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
Yes, I do support Commissioner Cruz 110%. Quality of life is more important to me than, reaching a milestone in time to get a project completed. And those are the exact times that I had in mind, from 8 to 8, so you must peep my whole card. And also from 9 to 8 on the Saturday, and no Sundays. So I really support that, and also looking at the distance. I'm sure you guys can work that out. Staff would take care of that, but we really need to do that because it's out of control. I get complaints also, probably not as much as you guys do because we don't have that much construction over in District 2. By the same token, it must be something that we take a look at and correct sooner than better. I mean, this is something that's, you got neighbors coming out here complaining to us about that, so we need to really address it. So my heart is with you.
Commissioner Turkin?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I can definitely support that. I think looking at what Doral does is, I think where you're getting at, where you separate the residential component from the commercial and industrial. As long as it's adjacent to a property that's not residential, right? Expanding those hours. I would say, I think it is important to include the exemption of emergency matters, because the last thing we want is a pipe to bust in the middle of the night and we can't triage that situation, right? So I think we need to incorporate that language, right, for utilities, those type of urgent things, because we've had that happen before right next to a residential property, and that was triaged throughout the night. So those are some of those one-off situations that I think residents care about. And Commissioner Cruz, you hit it right on the head with, there's a lot of development that's coming that was approved. I mean, I got the big towers that was approved right across from my house, Los Mangos, that community, they have live local property that was bypassed, administratively approved, right? So then you look at Ocean Avenue, and you have a lot of smaller duplexes, smaller, two-story condominiums that are going to be right next to all this. So I think it's important to get ahead of this now. It's like the old expression, there's always sunshine after rain. I think there's a lot of rain, but I think we see a little bit of sunshine as far as resolution. And I'm sorry, the residents of Lake Monterey, that this situation happened to get to the point where we had to come for a resolution. But, sometimes that's what it takes to enable policy, and that's what we're here to do, is enable policy, learn from the past so that we can create a better future. But yeah, I totally support you, Commissioner Cruz. This is not just a District 1 issue, this is a citywide issue. And, I would just ask that we incorporate those emergency matters for any potential utility outfalls, things like that. Thanks.
All right, thank you, everybody. Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. I haven't had a chance to talk at all, so thank you. So this is an important topic, so thank you, Commissioner Cruz, for bringing this up. My timing was even shorter because I was looking and thinking as a parent and, having children and having lived through little children and bedtimes and bath times and dinner times. And in my mind and on the weekends, my Saturdays and nap times and all that, I even more so was looking at Doral times almost exactly. They have Saturday like 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. where, that allows you to have a quiet dinner time as opposed to chaos inside and outside of your home. I am supportive of us establishing construction times. I think it's important. Like Commissioner Cruz has said, and Commissioner Turkin, we're coming into having a lot of construction happening in the city. I know this happened on the west side of the city with Publix, although I don't think we had as many issues and complaints, but it's still important to make sure that we're aware of what's going on. And so I am in favor of construction times. I think mine were a little bit stricter than what's been thrown out, so I'll support my colleagues on that. But if it were me, I would go a little bit more stricter, just to kind of leave some actually at home quiet time in the evenings. So those are my 2 cents on that. So so those are my comments. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you for bringing up Doral. I want to turn to Commissioner Cruz. Commissioner Cruz, are you comfortable with that recommendation? More
yes,
strict?
I am comfortable with it. I think it's a good idea.
The way it's structured in Doral?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. So there's two, yes, I agree with that. I think that anything that we can do, especially moving the hours up, specifically in the morning, is a great idea, and earlier in the evening. Monterey, I know we want to be done with this, right? So I would say, I wish that I could have some public comment and hear back, because we're here for you. So I don't know if we can open it up. It's not going to be much, but I kind of want to hear feedback from the community.
If my colleagues would support that, then typically we don't have public comment during a discussion. But again, ultimately, that's the decision of the majority of us. Council, you had your hand up, and we'll go around.
Just maybe a thought process, Commissioner, along that lines is if there is discretion from the board, or excuse me, not discretion, direction from the board, we could certainly come up with an ordinance which then allows for that public comment, if they agree with those times and those sorts of things. Then we have a more, it's very wide right now. And so with the direction I think that we're hearing, kind of modeling the city of Doral, coming up with a proposed ordinance, bringing it here and doing the public hearings at that time, or we can certainly do it now too. But that was just the
Again,
thought.
it's up to the majority.
correct.
Thank you, Council, for that. Commissioner Turkin?
Yeah, I don't mind opening up to hear back. They've gone through a lot, so, I'm okay with that. I'm okay to adopt some type of ordinance to tackling this in the future. Quick question about, back to the hours of construction. So it says these are based on the current noise ordinance. So do these other cities that we compare to, do they have a separate noise ordinance? And then they also have the hours of allowed construction?
Yep.
Do we know? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, and we're just going off one noise. Wow, really? It's interesting. I kind of want to look at the noise ordinance too. I've gotten some complaints.
Yeah.
You know, and we can save that for another time, but,
And
so
it's
we're
part
just,
of
this
it.
is all just based off, these aren't even, there's no identification for construction. This is just off the noise ordinance.
Right.
Right, and that's no one's, I mean, this is, we've been around for, over 100 years, so it's no one's fault, but, yeah, okay. So we need to establish.
Commission, we have a citywide noise ordinance, and there's a particular section within the noise ordinance that addresses construction.
Okay. Okay, because I don't, because I feel like 11 PM during the week is a little bit late from what I understand with the noise ordinance. Is that accurate? It's 11 PM? Oh, man, you guys gave me a hard time when I was cutting lumber at like 6 PM listening to Morgan Wallen on Thursday.
I believe the noise ordinance goes until midnight on the weekends, though.
And we have decibel
Yeah.
we have a decibel standard, so there are maximum allowed decibels even within the hours that are prescribed, so even before 11 o'clock.
I think it has to get a reading at around 65 decibels within 25 feet, I believe is the way it's crafted.
Yeah,
So-
and I mean, that's got to be enforced, though. That's the big thing is enforcement. We can have
I
all
want
the.
to, say if it's after hours, the police department will respond out there and get a reading and do a police report and forward it to code. Is that correct?
That's
Pat?
correct, yes. Yes, we can say based
So
on.
we
the
do
police report.
enforce the noise ordinance. I know we've got over the years, we've got a couple of complaints about live music at different bars and venues around the city, so.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
go ahead, just finish.
So, yeah, I would like to look at the, oh, perfect, thank you for bringing this up. So I'd look, if it's okay with my colleagues, I'd like to look at, maybe strengthening the noise ordinance through the weekdays at least too. Because here's the thing with enforcement, if we don't have, as a commission, right, and this goes with permitting, construction, residential, commercial, whatever, if we don't have updated policies, we can't get, when our residents are concerned, we can't get upset with staff for doing their job or not doing their job. It is our duty as a commission to update ordinances or repeal ordinances and update our code. So I think what I'd like to do is look at a complete code overhaul, all around. I think there's a lot of stuff we need to eliminate, a lot of stuff that's outdated, maybe stuff, to increase. One of those things was construction costs for replacing a fence. We went from 1,000 to 2,000 to the cost of construction. I think we need to do a complete code overhaul, so maybe we can add that as a future agenda item. And maybe that's a few workshops.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Turkin. So let me turn to council and ask the question. Since I'm hearing that the construction hours are inside the noise ordinance, would you advise that we create a separate ordinance solely for noise and then separate, we already have one for noise, but one solely for construction hours? Or do you want to continue with it being embedded or does it make a difference?
It's purely, I would like to see where it is in the code of ordinances, right? Because what Commissioner Turkin has pointed out, our code of ordinances are all over the place, right? It looks like sometimes they've randomly put things here, and they're not in the same section. And we've actually, with staff, we have discussed doing a whole ordinance overhaul, but there is so much. It is something that would have to be contracted out. I can tell you, we even ran some of those preliminary prices. It's incredibly expensive. It is something that we have discussed, but I'd like to see where it is and then determine if it should still stay in the noise ordinance or if it's something that should be separated out and maybe put somewhere else. And without looking right now, I can't answer that question.
Got it. So next meeting, hopefully, or the meeting thereafter, you'll be able to bring back a draft for us?
The next meeting is the March 18th meeting. And with potentially, depending on how the election goes, you're going to have potentially new people on, the dais who are not going to have the benefit of an agenda review. And so I really think that's probably something more appropriate to do at the second meeting.
Got it.
First or second meeting in
That's fair.
April.
Fair. Sounds good. But I do agree with, again, updating the construction hours. You let us know if that needs to be a standalone ordinance or not. But I also agree with what Commissioner said, that, bring back the noise ordinance so we can discuss the hours for that as well. Do we have
Question.
questions, comments? Yes, Commissioner Hay.
Did we happen to measure the decibel in this particular case in District 1 that we're talking about?
I believe have we done any noise measurements out there?
We have during the day. It's falling within the allowable noise. The way the ordinance works is we measure 25 feet from the property line, and then it has to be 20% of the time. So what we'll do is we'll have them go out there, we'll measure the ambient noise, which is basically the actual noise, birds chirping, so on and so forth. We try to eliminate that out of the reading. Then we measure for 10 minutes, and out of that 10 minutes, 2 of those minutes have to accumulate to being over the time to violate the noise ordinance. And as of today, we have not had that.
Did I hear you just say that they were within?
Yeah, they have been within, yes, when we've been out there. The biggest issue has been the starting early and the after hours is what's.
That being said, I would go along with hearing from the residents as a little wrap up to see what they have to say. Go ahead.
All right,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Vice Mayor.
I mean, my only concern with that is that then we're setting a precedent that on these agenda items, we've already had a public comment and residents spoke during public comment, and so I wouldn't want to then allow the same people to come up and speak on the same item that they previously spoke about, because then we're setting a precedent that then I think that we're on a slippery slope for public comment, but that's my thought on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that I don't want to hear from them, but I think that if we're coming back with a new ordinance, we will have opportunities for public comment. Commissioner Cruz will have an opportunity to speak to the residents. We can speak to those residents separately and see if there's anything that we need to talk to staff about. Staff can meet with them again, I'm sure. But I feel like we would be going down a slippery road if we allow public comment again at this time. But
All right, Commissioner Hay, thank you,
I
Vice
do
Mayor.
understand what the Vice Mayor is saying. To a point, here, I just want to see what end of the spectrum is the most problem, so that it would help in the evaluation overall, since they're here. I just want to hear what their take is at this stage of the game. It's not something I'm asking to put in practice, but we as a commission can make exceptions when we want to. And I think this is one of those that I would like to hear the comments after the fact.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. Listen, the majority of the board has spoken. They want to hear from the residents.
Yep.
Commissioner Cruz?
Yes, I just wanted to clear the record. I do want to hear from my constituents. They're here, and we are in the first reading. Unfortunately, next time when we get here,
No.
This is just a discussion item, and I think there's a consensus to do an ordinance. And
Which will
then
come
bring
back.
that back, which would then have the public comment. You know, there's.
first and second, okay.
Yeah, so there's certainly other, if there's one person that wants to designate to make a public comment, you could also potentially reduce public comment because it is a discussion item. Those are options, or you can just do it normally like how you normally would.
I think there's only like 2 people. If we could just
All right, listen.
allow, we could just.
This is
move
no
on.
argument here. The majority has already spoken, right? The majority of the board decides.
Right.
All right, so now let me turn to public comment. If any of the residents would like to provide any input based on the discussion and presentation you've now heard and seen, come on up to the podium. As always, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes. Let me switch the timer. Oh, 1 second. All right, begin when you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Beth Sanzone, and I live at Monterey. I do want to just give additional comment. I know that this is discussion around the actual noise. Like I said, I work out of my house, and most of the time I can just ignore what I hear. But most recently, there was construction going on where there was very loud pounding to the point where it was a Saturday. I couldn't take it anymore. I literally walked over to the construction trailer, knocked on the door, waited, and nobody came. Saw somebody coming in on a truck and asked him to please send somebody over to talk to me about coming up with a solution to minimize that sound. It was so loud, and I'm sure it wasn't a day that your team was there, because it would have definitely been way over 65 decibels. So with that said, they do have some pieces of construction that they're doing intermittent throughout this entire build that definitely over exceeds the decibel limit. It is not all the time, but it does happen. That's all.
Thank you.
Any questions for me before I leave? No? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next person.
Amelia, 165 Lake Monterey Circle. This has been going on for 8 months. 8 months. We're asking for help very much sooner rather than later. It's ridiculous. It's the decibels and it is the hours. It is both. Yes, we do need an ordinance overhaul on both the decibel and the hours. It's ridiculous. We're asking for some kind of relief and we need it now, not tomorrow, not a week from now, not in 3 months or 2 meetings, whatever it may be. We need it now. We're living through hell. It is horrible. It's atrocious. Neighbors are looking outside of Boynton Beach to get out. They no longer want to live in Boynton Beach. My money as a young adult is tied up in my home. I don't have options. Some of my neighbors don't have options. That's why I'm here. I need help.
Thank you. All right. I believe we have given direction to staff, right? We are going to model it after Doral with those hours that separates residential from business, from weekday to weekends. And I want to make sure we have clarity on that from staff, right? We're absolutely clear. And then there was discussion also about including some distance away from residential. Is that correct? Did I understand that? And Adam, did you have enough clarity for that?
Yeah, I think what Commissioner Cruz was requesting is under no circumstances under the exemption to allow work within a certain distance between properties.
Yes, yes, thank you, Adam. The purpose is really to prevent any construction from happening after the designated hours and removing all exemptions, unless, of course, there's an emergency, but just not allowing at any point any construction to happen after 8 p.m. And removing the exemption completely.
Understood. Excellent. Commissioner Turkin, let's make this our final round.
Yeah, no, I just want to offer that I'm game to come back for a special meeting to get this fast-tracked, so I'll throw that out there.
So the direction is to remove the exemption entirely so that our staff does not have the ability to authorize construction outside the allowable hours?
Correct. Thanks.
Okay. I would just offer that, that could be challenging in some circumstances, but if that's the will of the board, we'll move forward with it.
So this is a draft, right? So you're going to bring back a draft. We're going to explore all the implications and the meaning of it. So I see some hesitation there, but that's okay. It's a draft, but we're taking the steps to make it happen.
Only where we are adjacent to a residential area where the building to building distance is within X number of feet. So it could be 100, 400, whatever number we determine based on the current situation and situations that we foresee in the future. So it's very specific to residential areas, not for any other construction.
All right, thank you.
I think we need to make exceptions. If the commission needs to approve something, we can do that.
Yep.
Right?
Well,
I want to see some options. I want to look at every scenario, because what I don't want is any litigation or anything challenged in the future. I want to make sure that our primary source is this residential component, but what I don't want is to gutter clog construction in a non-residential area where this may not be an issue. And so I would like to look at a few options. Because the last thing we want to do is make it difficult for non-residential construction in a scenario that doesn't affect people, you know, because,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is she was referring to
Yeah,
residential, right?
I think we're making this longer than it needs to be. The point is residential areas
Yes,
where it's
residential.
adjacent to, directly adjacent to, where there's a zero space between property line to property line, and looking at the distance between building to be a X number of feet only within residential areas. This will not affect industrial, this will not affect, any other type of residential. It's only when it's adjacent to a residential area and specific to a specific number of feet from building to building.
All right.
And I don't want there to be any exemption, and that is the intent of this law, to make it firm, to protect the residents specifically, to be able to sleep in their homes. And this is such a small scope that it's specifically related from building to building, and Adam will be able to tell us, what number of feet staff comes up with. So I do want to move forward with that.
Thank you so much, everybody. We have given direction to staff and legal. We're ready to proceed. All right? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next portion of the agenda is public hearing. Item 8A, this is proposed ordinance number 25-001. It is a second reading.
Okay, anyone that is here to speak on items 8A?
Just Ed needs swearing in. 8A is quasi judicial, so we need swearing in and disclosures.
Okay, so please stand up and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may have a seat.
All right, thank you. Let's begin with disclosures. Who would like to begin? It doesn't matter to me. Commissioner, go ahead.
As to this matter, since the previous meeting, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications that I have seen at this point. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to this matter, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communication be made part of the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I borrow that sheet? Thank you. All right, regarding item 8A, as to this matter, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not had written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions on this matter outside of city staff. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As pertaining to this matter, 8A,
Oh, thank you.
I have not had ex parte communication. I have not received written communication. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinion except from staff. I request that these disclosures and all written communication be part.
You could develop a program for single-family homeowners as well and make them eligible for that to address that. So really, if there's a percentage reduction, it's a number that you all feel comfortable with in terms of moving forward. This last hearing, we did have a first reading. This is the second reading. If you all were to make a decision this evening to adopt this, the fee would go in effect 90 days from today. And I believe in terms of the ordinance, we put May 2nd.
I believe it's May 25th.
May, okay, 25th. And then that time frame, which is roughly a 3-month time frame, will allow an opportunity for the city to reach out to Palm Beach County to start negotiations with them. This is a recent bill that was passed by the legislature. It just went into effect this past October. There are a number of municipalities right now in Palm Beach County going through the exact same thing you all are this evening. And they will be going forward with their ordinances and their plan amendments and they'll be having their negotiations with the county. I will say we've looked at a lot of this data, and we've looked at some of the timeframes we've been working with the county on, and these issues of affordability and mobility, of share of what projects get spent in cities, these issues started being raised back in 2015 in the city of West Palm Beach. There were a whole host of hearings by George Webb in front of who was a former county engineer, in front of the Palm Beach County TPA in 2016 and 2017 and 2018 and 2019. The county has been in litigation with Palm Beach Gardens for over 5 years now on this very issue. So when they say, there's some commentary from the county, it's going to come up both for you all and any other municipality in the city. Oh, don't rush, don't do this, we're working on something, we're working on something. Well, the county's had roughly 10 years to come up with a solution to this problem, and it's not a new problem. This is something that every major municipality in this county has been addressing or asking to be addressed over these last 10 years. You will have an opportunity and an obligation per Florida statute to reach out to the county to negotiate with them, but you'll be negotiating based on your plan because the county hasn't gone through the process yet to adopt its own plan. So really the need and the documentation and the analysis is based on the plan for the city of Boynton Beach. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have and any direction or move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions for him from my colleagues? All right. With that, we will now turn to public comment on this item. As always, you have 3 minutes and state your name for the record. Let me switch the timer.
Good evening. Thank you, mayors, vice mayor, and commission members. I'm Kashid Mahyuddin, the Palm Beach County Planning Division, located at 2300 North Jog Road, West Palm Beach. Before I do my presentation, if I can request a motion to receive and file county's letter dated February 14th, which you guys all received from county's administrator's office.
Yes, if you'd like to distribute, just please give it to the city clerk and she'll make that.
Thank you.
Yep.
The county has submitted written letters objecting to any attempt by the city to repeal and replace Palm Beach County's traffic concurrency, road impact fee, and proportionate share. These letters has been coordinated with county attorney's office. County strongly believes that such an attempt to repeal these county's laws would be unlawful, as municipality cannot unilaterally repeal these laws per Florida Constitution and per Florida statutes and the county's charter. Should the city adopt this ordinance today, the county intends to pursue all legal remedies available to it pursuant to the charter and section 163-3180 Florida statutes. The statute provides that the city and the county must enter into an interlocal agreement to coordinate the mitigation of their respective impacts. In the near future, county will be providing an interlocal agreement in accordance with the Florida statutes. County is not opposed to city's mobility fee and mobility plan if and only if it is not contrary to county's impact fee and traffic performance ordinance. Thanks for the opportunity to raise county's objection.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on this item?
Yep, Susan Oyer, Boynton Beach. So I'm going to say for the residents, we're all for this because this is your chance to, one, get as much money as possible for these ungodly high buildings that we don't want, don't need, and we need another way to hinder them. And so I say quadruple the rates for multifamily and keep the single-family homes exactly where they are. We want good building in our city. We don't want bad buildings being built. So let's encourage financially, fiscally, pick your word, having good quality construction in our city, not the stuff we don't need. So Commissioner Turkin, please make that motion. Call it the Susan Oyer Amendment, 4 times up, please. I also think that this mobility study still includes that nonsense about the train station that we will never get, that we have proven in P&D meetings that I've called out before that we don't need, don't want, and yes, that's Amanda who's pushed it for years, and we don't need it and don't want it, and we're not going to get it. We have no chance of getting it. So the train station component needs to be taken out of this mobility study. And I'm going to say at this point, I desperately think we need trams. If we're looking at mobility and moving people through this city, we should be looking at putting trams in. I know the county, the meeting Commissioner Cruz was at with the DOT several months ago, that there were like 5 of us there. I think they brought up the trams. I think that's an outstanding idea, and that's something we should be looking at. And I'm happy to send you some information on how it got done in the city where I bought my condo in France. And they did it in the least invasive way possible. And it's actually used as like the gold standard for adding a tram into a city with the least amount of impact. Some college doctoral student or something did some review on it, and it's amazing. And we should be looking at trams, whether you're moving them up and down US 1 or up and down Boynton Beach Boulevard, east and west on Boynton Beach Boulevard, but that would be a great way to use the money and move people and solve some of our traffic problems. And I'm going to finish this by saying, please vote for this. Just remove the train station, which is not feasible or possible. Thank you. And you know what? Let's go for it. Let's deal with whatever happens with the county. Screw them. This is what your residents want.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Riddy. I want to echo what Susan said about the train depot. We don't need it. We don't need the extra density that it represents. And that ship has probably already sailed, but I wish it wasn't. The other comment I have is I can't believe the moxie of the county coming down here and threatening to sue us for pursuing our tax money being returned. I have a great idea. How about we sue them for the money we have not gotten for the past however many years?
All right, thank you. Last call for public comments on this item. Seeing no one, and I see no one online, public comment on this item is now closed. Again, this is item 8B for anybody online that's listening. Any final comments or questions from my colleagues? No. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Turkin. I heard a second from Vice Mayor, but Council, before we continue, you had a...
I just want to clarify, they did bring some different proposals with regard to the rates for the ordinance. So if we approve it as is, it's going to be those original rates that don't allow...
Not the amended from discussion last time?
Correct.
Okay.
So...
So second for discussion. I think there's a second for discussion.
Second for discussion.
We could do that right now. And then I can just add that language, whether you want the 10% or the 20%. And we can approve the ordinance as amended as to whether you want the 10% or 20% reduction as proposed by staff.
I would first ask if staff could please bring up that slide, and if Amanda and Jonathan want to come up as we prepare to have that conversation. All right, could you orient us, just to make sure everybody's on the same page? Which one are you referring to?
So there are 2 proposed in front of you. There is a 10% reduction, and the fees are based on 1,000 square feet. So I would pay attention to those lines just to see the actual fee itself. So currently, the 10% reduction would represent $2,200 approximately for 1,000 square feet. The math is definitely wrong for the 20%.
Yeah, sorry about the dyslexia. The 2245 would be the 20%.
Okay.
The 2525 would be the 10%.
Oh, got it. Got it.
So switch the 10 with the 20.
Yes, I apologize. So let me rephrase that just so we're all on the same page. A 10% reduction would be the $2,525 per square feet, and the 10% The 20% reduction would be the $2,245 dollars per 1,000 square feet.
All right. Who brought this up? Commissioner Turkin, did you have a preference?
Yeah, 20%.
Oh, the mic, mic.
Yeah, 20%. Like I mentioned last time, I want to incentivize single-family homes. And, it's already been stated in public comment. I brought it up last time. So whatever we can do to incentivize single-family homes.
I would just ask for the motion if we could use the percentage discount. I will double check the math to make sure it is correct in the ordinance. So if you could just state the discounted of 20%, and we will check the math before we amend the ordinance.
Do you want me to suggest the motion?
Before that, are there any other questions or comments from my colleagues on this? All right, council, please do so.
Motion to approve item 8B as amended, as stated, for a 20% reduction for single-family residential as stated.
So move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let me turn now to our city clerk to begin the voting.
Commissioner Hay?
Yes.
Commissioner Turkin?
Yes.
Commissioner Cruz?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Penserga?
Most definitely, yes.
In roll call vote, the motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You all.
We've been working on this for many, many years, ever since I was a commissioner. So it's nice to see this through.
It's good stuff happening.
Thank you, everybody.
Did I do that?
You did. That's okay.
Am I the next item?
The next portion of the
Only wish you would
agenda
have stayed for 10B.
is Section 10. We are now talking about Section 10A, discussion regarding workforce housing and affordable housing. Vice Mayor Kelly, you had brought this up, and Amanda, if you could stay at the podium. Which of you would like to kick it off? Would you like to do it?
So much has changed since I brought up this and added this item. My request was something that I had asked, and we had had discussions on, and we actually amended and changed some of our, to try and enhance affordable housing. And so I asked for that again, and in turn, it opened a whole new can of worms and options, and so I'm excited. Amanda and I have had conversations on this, and I know she is excited to share some of the things that we talked about, and so I'm going to turn it over to her, but, this is a good thing to, hopefully we can bring in some affordable housing and not just, one of the, I don't want to say issues with Live Local is that Live Local is bringing in affordable housing, but it's bringing in affordable apartment housing, rental. And so when in my conversations with Amanda, I was asking her, what can we do? How can we incentivize bringing in affordable for purchase and for sale properties, and what can we do? And so that's kind of how our conversation started. And so, so I know she has some great ideas to share and with you guys, and hopefully we can start this process going. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Amanda Radigan, Planning and Development Director. I have a very brief presentation that's really just kind of designed to guide your discussions, and obviously I'm available to fill in any gaps or answer any questions as you have them. So first, I wanted to talk about what has been constructed in the city in terms of affordable housing and or workforce housing. We've had some, in coordination with the CRA, some units built within the city. Those include about 250 units within the heart of Boynton area. It also includes several approved projects, which includes 41 units within the Pulte Cottage District and 150 units within the Pierce project. It also includes, and you'll see these in red outlined, those two projects, the Dunes and the Dune Residence, are Live Local products that have been administratively approved, since we are preempted from the state to bring those forward to commission. But that has currently brought in 119 units in one project and 15 units within the other, which totals 572 units within the last couple of years of affordable units. As stated by Vice Mayor Kelly, though, I believe almost all of these are rental units. So I wanted to briefly talk about the existing program. It is important to note that the program is completely voluntary and is broken up into what I call two sections, the building program or the construction of workforce units, and then the in lieu of building program, which usually is a payment. So the building program is really tailored towards workforce housing developers, and it is incentivized through density, height, and FAR bonuses. And the goal of this program is to, for private investment to construct the actual units, and in return, a percentage of those units are dedicated towards workforce housing. Now, the other section, which is the in lieu of building program, is usually tailored to the market rate developers. Again, it is incentivized by density, height, and FAR bonuses. And the biggest option that we see is the payment in lieu of program. And I highlighted in red that the goal of this program is to fund the Housing Trust Fund in order for the city to implement workforce housing initiatives. There are some other options within that program that allow for the donation of land to the city and the construction of off-site construction of those units, as well as the purchase of market rate units. All of those are in lieu of options. We haven't seen any of those used within the program yet. So this Housing Trust Fund. The Housing Trust Fund is essentially literally a fund where payments from this program can be deposited into, and in turn, the city, and what's underlined is actually straight from the code, those funds are to be used for the purpose of providing workforce housing units. So that's where it ends in the code. It just says to move forward with workforce housing initiatives. So some of the things that, and this is to lead your discussion now, is what can we do with those dollars, as we are expecting some payment in lieu of to be deposited into that account fairly soon with the construction of Town Square and some of the other projects that we see going up. And in talking with Vice Mayor Kelly, the first three are actually geared towards for sale or home ownership. So the first one, and these are all ideas for programs that we could build in order to have the Housing Trust Fund fund these programs. So the first one is to subsidize for sale workforce and affordable development. And that could be based on a per unit of for sale units. A certain dollar amount per unit that is for sale. The other one is a down payment assistance program. And the third could be land acquisition that the city would do in order to supply workforce housing or to supply single-family homes, which in turn we could require them to be for-sale products. The other three are just loosely related. Some can be home ownership and some are not home ownership. One could be an overall fee reduction program for affordable units. Another idea is rental assistance programs. Some of that is usually geared towards move-in costs. And then the third, the last one in this category is kind of a catch-all, which is really to subsidize other types of housing needs. There's been some discussion about senior housing, veterans housing, and some adults with disabilities housing. All needs to use those funds, they're loosely related to affordable housing. If they are income restricted, we may be able to use the code the way it is now. Some of these might take some tightening up or probably expanding of the language of what those funds are used for, but I think everything on this list and countless other things could be a product of the workforce, the Housing Trust Fund. And I'm available to answer any questions or to fill in gaps if needed.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. I think that, the incentives and the programs, I think that the first three, like Amanda mentioned, are really geared towards attracting, single family or for purchase properties. And so in our conversations, trying to gear what that funding could be used for so that it's not just kind of there at the discretion of whoever is on the dais at the time that those funds are available. I think that us establishing true programs to really kick off, enhancing our, the single family homes, is a worthwhile task. So that's just, Amanda, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all of your research and work on this. And so I'm just looking forward to hearing for my colleagues on their thoughts. I've had lots of thoughts on this, and I think anything that we can do to make sure that we're doing, being the most fiscally responsible with whatever money goes into that housing fund, I think, is definitely a good thing. So, thank you.
All right, anything else from my colleagues? Commissioner?
Yeah, I like the land acquisition component. I think that's pretty good. And buy more properties in the east so they don't become subject to live local. As far as the density or awarding density, I'm not in favor of that. Tallahassee's already doing that for the private sector. But I do think there is a need, to looking at subsidizing for senior housing. You have a lot of senior residents who are being hit from, multiple angles, whether that's condo assessments, whether it's insurance, property taxes, cost of living, right? And so I think it would be important to not just look at future residents, but more so looking at the residents that live here now and seeing how we can subsidize and help those seniors and those protected classes, that have invested in our community year over year over year with their property taxes. I think what we need to look at is helping the residents that live here now. And, I would like to see some more options with that.
Thank you. Let me just briefly chime in. One recommendation I would make, Amanda, is that maybe we look at this through a different lens. That is, which of these ideas, and maybe there's more, which of these ideas would increase the construction of new housing stock? Which of these will actually, as Commissioner Turkin alluded to, help the current residents with our current housing stock? And what perhaps can we do to, what's the right word, buoy or support our current housing stock to make them into affordable? Does that make sense?
It does, and most of these could fall into one of those programs, but each of those programs would be structured a little bit differently. So options 1 and 3 would obviously add to housing stock.
Yep,
Right,
new construction.
New construction,
Yes.
exactly. Down payment assistance doesn't necessarily have to be new construction. What I would say when we are not doing new construction, however, since these have to be for workforce housing and, our program is 15 years, there usually would be some required deed restriction on that property to require it to be maintained as workforce housing for a certain amount of time. So when we're talking about subsidizing any group of individuals, the kind of exchange for that subsidy would be that unit remains workforce housing for an X amount of time.
Thank you. And on that note, I'm sure there are models in other places. We're not the first to think of this. Subsidy is time restriction, is that correct? So for example, these units would remain affordable for the next 10, 15, 20 years if we continue to make subsidies annually? How would that work?
It depends fully on the structure of the program. So for new units, the typical would be for it to be based on a kind of gap financing for the construction of that unit. And then in turn for the gap financing, our program is currently 15 years of deed restriction. Live Local requires 30 years. So that could be fully tied into the program and the requirements of that program. It could vary from program to program as well, since the gap financing per unit would obviously be a much larger number than something like down payment assistance.
All right, anything else from my colleagues? Commissioner Cruz?
Yep, I think that if we're gonna subsidize, we need to subsidize only for sale products. I think we have enough things for rent already, and everything that's in the pipeline is for rent. And there's, what are we doing about it, right? And so, with that being said also, I think about, in my opinion, and this is a conclusion that I've come to after sitting here for 3 years. Although it's great that we receive the money, we're not in the business of developing land. So we're always gonna have to deal with someone else to build a product after all. So if we create the incentives to be only and only for sale products for our future land, that is, I think, a magnificent idea of how we can protect any land that we do acquire. And it's the only time that we can actually mandate and say, if you're not building for sale workforce products, then you're not going to build anything at all.
That's exactly right. And so those, you kind of mixed, I think, two of the programs together. So to subsidize for sale workforce, it won't necessarily be on our property. We would subsidize and require that that be a for sale unit and require it be deed restricted for X amount of years. And then land acquisition, we can ask for that same thing. We can, and that, and my thoughts on this, and this can change and morph, but when I wrote land acquisition for workforce affordable single-family homes, we're talking more like partnering with Habitat for Humanity, like to add single-family for sale products or other developers of that nature, and our participation in that would be the donation of that property.
Okay, thank you.
And that, again, that's just my thought when I wrote that. That doesn't mean that there aren't other ways to do that.
Absolutely. I would support land acquisition with the money that we're going to get, and specifically making sure that we deed restrict those new properties to be for sale only products and not high rises, but maybe like single family homes or townhomes. And then designate a portion of that to be designated specifically and only for seniors. So we could do a percentage, whatever percentage, the board decides to move forward with. It could be 25%, 30%. Specifically allocated for seniors. I think that would be a nice solution, but that's going to take some time.
And that'll be difficult to do with a program for land acquisition because we'd be buying or acquiring one parcel at a time. So it'd be hard to say what percentage. And also, we can acquire the land, but a lot of these programs are based on the public applying for these subsidies. So it would be difficult, in my opinion, to add a percentage on them. We can write some incentives to make it more appealing for seniors. We can try and tailor it so it incentivizes certain demographics more. But just because this is one unit at a time and we want to make sure that this is single family homes, I think it'd be worded a little bit different, but we can look at some options.
I thank you. And nobody respond to this, but thinking about CRA, if in a hypothetical sense, we were to acquire a big chunk of land and we owned it, and we were to use that specific land to incentivize building, then why not de-restrict it to something that's for sale when you can control the product once and for all? And at that point, if it was a large enough parcel in any area per se, not to be specific, but we could at that point designate a percentage to be only for seniors, workforce housing with.
And we can word it like that. It could be based on a size of property. So it's not one single family home lot, but if something is acquired that's over, let's say, an acre, a portion of that would have to be not only income restricted, but age restricted.
Thank you. And then the last thing I'm going to say, it would be, as we're seeing more live local now, I'm still not fully educated on the intricacies or the legalities of it. I would like to receive more information from legal as to, it's hard for me to believe that there's absolutely zero opportunity for us as elected officials of this land within the city of Boynton Beach to say that we have absolutely no way to determine anything, any way, shape, or form with regard to live local. So I'm not educated on that yet because I'm not an attorney. But what I would love to receive is like a report from our legal department, sooner rather than later, to educate myself and I would say everyone here, because I can always learn more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've done a memo, but I can expand that or resend it. We can certainly have a conversation.
And I can also just note that the Florida Housing Coalition actually has some really great resources available online that we're happy to share. I actually did print a few copies of their overview of the bill, as well as a portion of their slides that talk specifically about their preemptions. But as someone who has read this and has been tasked with enforcing some of these new regulations, I can tell you that these are preemptions that that have been taken away from local authorities, specifically in 3 areas. So there are rules that the state now governs in terms of density for eligible projects, for height and FAR, and now parking. Those 3 areas are completely outlined within the bill and what those regulations are. If you are eligible, meaning you are providing rental, 40% of those units are workforce housing, under 120% AMI. So I'm happy to provide more information on that. But
120% is pretty high.
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I'm not even up there with my master's degree, so.
Absolutely.
So with regard to preemption, you know, the city starts with home rule, and then the state can come in and say, no, we've decided to regulate it instead, and now you can't. And that's exactly what the state has done here. So we have no ability to regulate that whatsoever.
It's hard for me to believe, and I thank you for your response. But it's difficult for me to believe that there's 0% of an opportunity for us to see what we could do about future projects. Again, I don't know, I'm not an attorney, but I would love to maybe get a list of like things we might be able to change, whether it's directly or indirectly, because there's direct ways and indirect ways, right? Back to, I requested to look at the comp plan, like to do an entire comp plan amendment for the city, because that will give us power and authority to maybe look at green space and things of that nature.
Again, Commissioner Cruz, I can just say that the comp plan would not supersede state statute, so those preemptions would still exist. And it's kind of a twofold thing. And, you know, I'm not an expert. There are experts I can put you in touch with that have helped teach attorneys and planners throughout the state how this is supposed to be enacted. As a planner and someone who is a regulatory person, it took me a long time to come to grips with it too, because it is an authority usually afforded to municipalities that has been taken away. And I think one of the best things we could do is talk to our state representatives and take this to Tallahassee, because we really are preempted. And that doesn't mean there's nothing we could do.
Specific to the comp plan amendment, just I was referring to rezoning. So
Okay,
with
so-
the comp plan, we could
All right.
talk about rezoning, that's all.
So there are 2 components to that. One would be the state statute, and whenever you do a rezoning, there are always there's a much more legal precedent on takings. And if we rezone property from commercial to residential, we are affecting their takings and open us up to possible lawsuits.
No, I meant
Let
the
me-
other way, to rezone
Let me
residential
turn-
to commercial.
Thank you. Let me
That
turn
would open up
to
more availability.
Amanda, thank you so much. Let me just turn to my colleagues. I want to give everybody an opportunity to speak, but we're going to circle around, don't worry. Commissioner Turkin, then we'll go to Commissioner
Thank you,
Hay,
Mayor.
and so on.
No, I think this is a great topic, and for the last 3 years, I have been advocating for these things. I provided multiple solutions as far as reduction in density from 150 to 45 feet. I didn't get any support of that. We got to 85 feet. For a long time, I proposed for an enhancing of green space, right? And I didn't get support for that. We had multiple chances to identify stuff to roadblock this, minimum square footage of units, right? That was something that someone had brought up, and then the sponsoring city commissioner apparently did not want to see it back on the agenda. I don't know. We had chance after
Whoa,
chance
whoa, whoa, that is not
after chance.
true. I requested for that
All
to
right.
be added
I
to the
told you
meeting.
I don't
I
know.
don't appreciate
Ladies
that.
and
That is
gents,
incorrect.
one second. One person at a time.
But-
Commissioner
I'm
Turkin,
not
finish your
Italian.
thoughts.
I'm telling you
I
what.
requested minimum
Both
size
of
for
you,
units.
both of you. You will have a time to respond. Finish your thoughts, Commissioner, and then I'll give you the floor,
that's
Commissioner
not true.
Cruz, to finish it. Go
I'm
ahead.
telling you, I said I don't know, so if I could finish, that'd be great. I didn't cut you off, so please don't cut me off. We had many opportunities to mitigate this. I came in trying to mitigate this, and I didn't get the support, and now we're playing catch-up. So let Live Local be a lesson that when we look at development, you know, it's a wide scope. It's infrastructure. It's traffic, right? I've been hollering about this for the last 3 years. You see it all over social media. You hear about it in public comment, right? Town Square, that was voted 4-1. 900 units. Who voted against that? I did. Hyperion, when that was coming down the pipeline, they needed a piece of city or CRA-owned land in order to get the project done, right? Who voted against that? I did. So to sit here and say, we're looking for solutions now, I think that we should look back at the past and see how we can learn from it. And when we look at pushing forward genuine policy, right? You don't just ignore it. I mean, I sat up here and asked to look at what Boca did at their required green space, right? We had an opportunity to try to match that. I didn't get support. So, I think this is a good opportunity to look and understand what people are saying and thinking, and people don't like the density, simple and plain, right? I mean, 150 feet's way too high, 85 feet's way too high. You know what I mean? We don't have the infrastructure for it. So I think, again, I stand by what I say. I don't approve any increased density, whether it's for workforce housing, affordable housing, fee simple, you know what I mean? We got a lot to focus on now, right? And I want it to be known for the record that for the last 3 years, I proposed multiple policies to try to combat this. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Cruz, I did say I was going to give you the floor, so I'm going to do that. But after your comments, I really would like to get back to the item at hand so we can give staff some additional input and direction, and we can proceed with the meeting,
Yep.
okay? Commissioner, do you want to take the floor?
Yes, I did request a discussion for minimum size units, and that never came back on the agenda. So I didn't personally request for that to be gone. You've requested a lot of things that haven't come back. And I'm not saying that it's your fault for them not coming back. So let's not attack each other. Let's just respect each other. And, respect goes both ways. So, yeah, that's it. I just wanted to say I did request a discussion on minimum size units. And I thought that might have been a indirect way to potentially make some changes, And it's never too late, so there's always opportunity in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. Your comments have been noted. Vice Mayor Kelly, this was your item. I want to make sure if there was anything else you wanted to add, that you had an opportunity to do that, or any other questions you may have.
No, I don't have any other questions. I mean, the reason and the reason for this conversation was because we have a workforce housing fund, and it was really to get input and start a conversation with my colleagues on how we can best word a program where we can, how to use those funds. So I feel like this conversation kind of went all over the place, but the main purpose of this conversation was what programs were possible and feasible, and what programs the dais was, the commission was interested in, starting and working on language and figuring out how it would work. So I just want to get back to the point of the conversation was to determine as new development is coming in and the payment in lieu of goes into this workforce housing fund, how best can we decide where those monies will go in order to incentivize for sale projects going into the city, whether it be east, whether it be west, whether it be north, whether it be south, but really to start that conversation. So I just want to get back to where we were. And what the point of the discussion was to talk about those things. I think land acquisition is one possible, but I don't want to put all the eggs in one basket because, like you pointed out, Amanda, we're talking about more than likely a parcel here or a parcel there. We're not looking at a block where then we have the ability to incentivize or partner in a larger for sale project. I know we talk about the other hat, the CRA, and we see just how long it takes to be able to take several land acquisitions to get to the point where you can actually use it for one project. So I don't want to put all of the eggs in one basket. I think that we can utilize maybe some of the funds for that, but I think that's kind of where this conversation, where it makes most sense to allocate or what program would make the most sense to start. We can, and Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things we talked about was we can say, we're gonna establish this one program and let's try it out, see if it bites, and allocate a certain amount of funding and see it, and not put everything into one program, but see if that takes off, see if it incentivizes, see if it works, a down payment program, or, subsidize for sale units for seniors or whatever, so that any development that's coming in or wants to come in, they can go, oh, wait, there's this subsidy that's available. If I build for sale units for seniors, I'm eligible for this program. And so I think that's, what can we do, and what projects and what programs is the commission interested in to start making sure that we're putting these funds to good use, so they're not just sitting in the account waiting to.
Absolutely. Vice Mayor, thank you for bringing this up, and I had said something along the same lines in previous meetings. We have this fund, it's new. I want to make sure that it wasn't a wild, wild west. I think that was the phrase I used to staff of how we use it. I think there are some really good ideas here. Again, my comments earlier today, I want to think about those three buckets. What can we do to create new housing? What can we do with current housing to make them affordable? And what can we do, and I think the better word I was looking for earlier should have been preserve the current housing stock. All three pathways increases affordable housing for the residents. Now, one of the other thoughts I had, just big picture, is who gets the money? So for example, let's take a look at rental assistance program. It sounds like a great idea. Sounds like it. But let's say someone is renting a unit and we help pay for their rent. Is that what's meant by rental assistance? Well, my worry is that's just going to go back to the landlord, right? Where is the money going to? Are we making it affordable for the resident, but do they benefit from it in the long run? Or is it a Band-Aid and some super wealthy person who may or may not know these tenants? Does that make sense, Amanda?
It does. And so that is one of all of them up here. I think that one is the most temporary of all of them. However, in the rental assistance programs I have seen, they are not ongoing rental subsidies. They are usually structured for move-in costs. So it helps them get into an apartment. So it usually helps with like deposits, first and last month, things like that. It is a one-time, I would call it like a grant, that we help people get into units if they are falling within a certain level of income.
Let me ask you about the fee reduction program. Are we talking about impact fees? What fees are we talking about?
We can look at all of them. So this is, and again, this one I think is geared towards bigger development. I don't mean multifamily, but if we were talking about a bigger project, fee reduction programs would include reductions in permit fees, reductions or services that are given to them. Like we already have expedited permitting. There could be some sort of reduction possibly in impact fees. Again, these are all tailored to different users.
Understood. So let's just pretend for a moment it was impact fees. Has there ever been a developer that said, I would have built affordable housing if I didn't have to pay for these impact fees? In other words,
No.
Does that actually make a difference? That's what I'm asking, right? Because if we have limited funds, where are we going to target it to? And so these are the kind of trains of thoughts that I'm having.
Yes, absolutely. And it also, if the goals of these programs are for sale units, this would not be very impactful as well, because they're not going to change the structure of ownership of their program for a fee reduction. So this program is like icing on any existing programs that we could want to fund out of the Housing Trust Fund.
All right. So my understanding is that the largest barrier to affordable housing construction is land cost. That may change over time, but that's my understanding. And I understand that it takes a very long time. We're gonna have to piece them together. But contributing to land acquisition for sale units, I'd be open to that. The down payment assistance program, I'm also in favor of that. I believe we already have a program for that, but it may be constrained. I'm getting some head nods from Andrew here. So I assume this will just expand that. So the first three ideas you have, I'm right on board. And if we could carve out some additional incentives for senior housing, veterans housing, who could be against that, right? I mean, those are all going to help the community. So, again, I just want to just not think about building new, but also preserving what we've got. That will overall increase the housing stock. But also, I'm cognizant of where the money will go to, right? So great ideas. Let's get started, put something in detail, and I'm fully behind it. This is the right spirit of the fund. Now, one of the things you had on your PowerPoint slides, Amanda, was this, I don't remember which slide, but there was this concept of off-site construction. Has anyone offered that to us yet? It hasn't occurred?
We haven't received, overall, the
So can we
housing.
clarify what's meant by that for anyone that's listening? So somebody wants to build market rate, and they want to benefit from whatever incentive. They don't necessarily include it in that project, but they may build it somewhere else. Do I have that correct?
That's exactly right. And other cities and counties do something similar. The county has one that they could build anywhere. I actually think Pulte was a result of a market rate housing development that required affordable housing to be built, and that was built here. Our program does require it to be built within the city, however, and land is scarce here. We are a mostly built out city, so it hasn't been offered yet.
Okay. I have good feeling. I think, again, you're in the right spirit. You're in the right direction. Anything else from my colleagues? Commissioner Hay or anything else? Anyone else? We're good. Amanda, thank you so much. You have direction. Is it clear, sufficient for now?
Absolutely. So I think our next steps will be.
Are there any federal funding or grant monies that we're looking at for
So for
help out?
So for this program specifically, we are talking about our current housing trust fund that we are going to get money deposited into. However, the city does receive SHIP funds and CDBG dollars that are programmed, and the commission approves the program for both of those funds annually. That is, I believe, where we have some down payment assistance programs, and we even have some, I think, some financing, Mayor, how you were talking about upkeep and preservation of existing housing stock. There are some funds and grants available, I think, through that program that cover some of that. So I think for what I would like to do with the city's direction is put together another discussion item with a little bit more details on a couple of proposals for a program to talk through the details. The devil is in the details with these things, so I want to make sure before we write full programs that we have some consensus on what the goals are of them and who we're targeting for each of them. So I could bring back three different proposals and move forward with any number of them. And I will also bring some more information on what CDBG is currently used for and SHIP is currently used for, so we could see a more holistic view on all of the programs that the city is offering.
Very good. Thank you.
And as part of your research, Amanda, if you could also reach out to the county, because they already have a program, and I want to make sure that we learn from them. What's working for them, what's not working, what are some gaps that we could fill in?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's
Thank you,
keep
Amanda.
going. Thank you. The next item and the last item on the agenda is a discussion regarding minor road extension by Palm Beach County, another item requested by Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. This is, gosh, how do you bring this up? About a year and a half ago, some neighbors in my neighborhood and across the canal from me noticed that there were some surveyors along the canal. And they reached out to me and said, what's going on? Because this has always been on the county's thought process that Minor Road would, for whatever reason, be extended from Military Trail to Lawrence Road. The issue with that is Minor Road is a very narrow 2-lane, or 2.5 lane, I guess if you count the turn lanes, very narrow road with one sidewalk on one side. And as with county tradition, is 45 miles an hour down Minor Road. We have children that walk down Minor Road to access Citrus Cove Elementary. We have a fire station. We have several bus stops. We have homes that are within 6 feet of the road. And so when I got word of this, I met with the county, along with, city staff, and to voice my objection to them extending this road. Because Minor Road, as we know, does not serve any east-west purpose, except to get people to High Ridge Road, and then west to Lawrence at this point. I was told by the county that their job is to get people from west to east as fast as possible, and that they were gonna do it regardless. So I asked, as part of that meeting, to provide traffic data, because their position was people utilize Congress Avenue to go north or south to I-95. They either go north to Hypoluxo or they go south to Gateway. And I said, no, I drive this every day to work, every day, and that is not true. They go to High Ridge, which High Ridge is then a small 2-lane road that has no traffic signal, no traffic, nothing to direct traffic at High Ridge and Minor, and it's an absolute mess. We have 2 schools north of Minor on High Ridge, and now with, south of Minor, you have Publix, the police department, I-95 access. And so I asked them after that meeting, I said, please provide me data on Minor Road, west of Congress and east of Congress, because I don't think that people are utilizing Congress Avenue to go north and south to get to 95. And it's attached to the backups, but the combined data west of Congress was 9,969 vehicles that hit their traffic data west of Congress Avenue. East of Congress Avenue, it was 8,845. So less than 1,000 utilize Congress Avenue to go north or south, and they want to increase volume onto an already congested 2-lane road in our city for no other purpose, because there's no direct access to I-95. They have to go north or south. The only thing that it's going to do is it's going to allow people to avoid school zones on Military Trail and increase traffic in people's backyards. We have Sandalwood, and there's also Citrus Glen and Knollwood. Right, you are talking about 6 feet in their backyards, a major 45-mile-per-hour road. Andrew, and as part of this backup, he looked at the Palm Beach County 5-year plan, and their plan does not include any updates to current infrastructure on Minor Road or the roundabout that has been in conversations for 10 years. Was
it taken off?
They have not. They have, because they have to acquire land for the roundabout, they have not started that process. However, in their 5-year plan, this year is Minor Road from Military to Lawrence, right-of-way acquisition fees, which means they're going to take from Knollwood, their land, and the other homes, and then in 2027, construct this exchange or this extension without taking into consideration the volume that it would bring to an already congested Minor and High Ridge intersection. And so, I've had conversations with them to prioritize. Staff has had conversations with them about prioritizing the roundabout and how you're going to move traffic before you start this process. But they're wanting to push this forward. And so I'm just kind of looking for some consensus from my colleagues that, one of the suggestions that Andrew had was, if there's a consensus from my colleagues to present our objection as a whole with the county with regard to this extension, that it might be a little bit more forceful than my letters, because I have sent letters. I've asked for additional backups. They've ignored my request for additional traffic studies. And so I just am looking for some, some support from my colleagues on this.
Vice Mayor, as your neighbor and as your colleague, I give you my unconditional support in this matter. Absolutely, thank you for taking up this cause. How best can I help? Would the best thing be for me to sign on to a letter? Would the best thing be for us to set up meetings with county commissioners? How best can we help you?
Andrew, what are some of your thoughts on the best way to proceed as far as this item?
As you mentioned, when I met with Vice Mayor Kelly, I asked her to put this item on because she wrote letters in the past. We can continue that effort, writing letters. I think definitely a meeting, if you guys would license the commissioner to kind of speak on your behalf on this particular subject and set up some meetings with the county, because I too share her concerns. I drive this stretch every day. And to avoid those school zones on Hypoluxo and coming down our gateway. So there's definitely going to be some impacts if they go ahead and just do the extension. Like Vice Mayor Kelly said, I can tell you some of the turning movements on the north-south side of Lawrence will be definitely impacted. There's a lot of different impacts that should be looked at prior to extending this road. And that would be definitely the basis of our letter and discussions with the county to see if they are going to continue with that extension, that we would make sure that they put those improvements in so that we're not bottlenecking our residents or making traffic patterns in our city worse than they are already.
Agreed. Again, what is the best thing for us to do? Is it a joint letter? Is it?
I think a letter from the commission asking for Vice Mayor to represent the city and on behalf of this subject and with the full weight of the commission behind it.
Fine by me.
All right, you have unanimous support.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So come back to us with that.
Yes, absolutely. We'll draft a letter and we'll send everybody a copy and make sure that we keep you updated on our progress.
Excellent,
Thank you.
excellent. Any final?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, one thing, just one thing. It was mentioned during public comment, and I'm kind of glad that it was brought up, but I would like to know, Adam, and at a future meeting, or he's not sitting there, or Dan, what is the status of our animal control and how that's being handled? Because, there is an issue and there are complaints happening, and I know that it's a spot that is vacant, and from my understanding, there is no plans to fill that position, and I think that is a detriment to our residents. And I would like to hear a plan moving forward, because what's happening now and how it's being handled now is not working. It's not being manned. We know that nobody can replace Liz. It would probably take 5 people to replace Liz. She is an amazing animal advocate and did that job justice, but it's not working. And I mean, for us to get complaints about leash laws and leash issues, I know I would bet money that is the least of our worries when it comes to animal issues right now, and they're being overlooked and not being handled, and that to me is a problem. And so I would like to know what the status is of that, what the plan is for that, and how are we going to address these issues, because we know that code is busy and cannot be worrying about leash laws, and we know that the police department, and however they're handling it through detectives or whatever they're doing, it's not working, and it's not an appropriate use of funds and whatever they're doing. And so I want to know what is happening with that position and how we're going to address these issues.
It's a simple fix. If it's the will of this body to have a full-service animal control employee attached to the police department or attached to code enforcement, I don't know what the correct option would be, but historically it's been in a PD.
Mhm.
We have no issue adding that position back over at the police department.
Well, I
But
want to know how it got removed, because I know I didn't vote on it to be removed and be reallocated or be changed, or it didn't come before us on how those issues were going to get addressed. So I am 100% on board with we should have an animal cruelty officer in our city. And that is a position that should not have gone away when Liz left. And so if it has gone and that position has been reallocated elsewhere, then we need to figure out, we need to unfix that. We need to, because that's not anything I voted on. I would not have supported that, and so that's my position.
Right.
We don't need to have that conversation tonight, but I want to know what's going on with that.
Understood. So city manager, if you could come back next meeting with an update to that question, right?
Yeah, so that's an easy fix. That's a decision that the police chief wanted to explore as far as going from that, because no other municipality in the county has their own dedicated municipal animal control person. I know Liz is more of an institution. She's been with the city for close to 30 years. Everyone in the city knows her. She has a passion for what she did. And the police chief's thought on the matter was, and you kind of alluded to that, Vice Mayor, was how do you replace Liz? And I don't think you can. But we can definitely explore other options. I would bet. What I'll do is I'll sit down with the police chief either this week or next week, and we'll look and see what the best case scenario moving forward is. Maybe it's not just one dedicated person. Maybe we can expand that to like 2. So like one on the east side, one on the west side, and we can kind of look at that.
I mean, whatever they are doing is not working if we're getting leash law complaints. I mean, that's something I've never heard that in my
There's a multitude of complaints. I know we've heard it over at Forest Hill Park in District 3.
Right, but I mean, to hear it like at a commission meeting, it's an issue. So that's my concern, is that we shouldn't be hearing about these. They should be getting addressed, and if they're not getting addressed, let's figure out why they're not getting addressed and address that issue.
All right, thank you so much, both of you.
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah. Commissioner Hay, and then we'll go to Commissioner Turkin.
Yeah, just a couple of quick items. First of all, I want to say great work on getting the Sims Center project going. It needed to have been started yesterday, but I'm glad to hear that's moving along. First of all, I'd like to add for a release to staff on looking into some property for the cemetery that I've spoken already with some of our staff about. I don't know if you want me to reveal the site right now because of what we're trying to do, but there's some available, well, I don't know if it's available, but it looks to be available, large piece of property that we might be able to look into. So just want to release staff to do that for the cemetery additions that we so desperately need. Okay? And please don't ask me to go any further than that. Secondly, I'd like to, this coming around for budget right now. And there's a situation where we could allow the people in wheelchairs to get their feet wet at the beach. Right now, we go overboard with our dogs and pets, and that's great. But there are people who are in wheelchairs who can only go to the boardwalk, and they would like to get their feet wet. And I've seen these wheelchairs with the fat wheels that allows you to, be mobile in the sand, in the beach sand. So I don't know what the cost is. I don't know anything. Maybe because this is budget time, please look into it. Maybe we could afford 1, 2, 4, I don't know. But maybe we could have the lifeguards maintain them. I don't know the answers, but I think the idea that I saw was a great one, and it would be something that this city would stand out again on. So please look in, I don't know what you call it, big wheelchairs?
I think we actually have 1 or 2 of those, Commissioner Hay, if I'm not mistaken.
I've seen them, yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we do have those.
Maybe we don't have enough, maybe that's the
Well,
problem.
we need to market a little bit better, because I was asked about it, and,
Okay.
they don't know about it. So
Well,
if we have them, let's
What I'll do is
promote
I'll get with staff, and we'll definitely provide a confirmation on either, if we don't have enough, we can always add a few more.
So the
just make
mats
sure
that go on.
Who maintains them? That's okay, we don't have to talk about it tonight.
Ocean Rescue, I believe, is going to be they're going to be the ones that
we can
maintain,
talk about it
and they're they should be available upon request as long as there's enough. But what we'll do is we'll confer and then we'll get back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Turkin.
No, I want to concur on the thing with Liz and the animal control officer. So we heard it tonight, and when I emailed, this was brought up to me from constituents in actually both Gulfview Harbor and my neighborhood in Forest Park. And, you know, I don't remember that. So the answer I got when I emailed you, Adam, from the police chief, was that they were looking to just reallocate that position, and it essentially dissolved, right? And that never came before commission. That's a very important thing. I don't care if we're the only municipality that has it. We have a lot of non-HOA, single-family resident homes, and a lot of people, you know, with a lot of animals. So I would love to see that come back. Really, if it's okay with my colleagues, I'd like to see a budget amendment come back so we can go ahead and approve that position if we need to, or if that's something you can do administratively.
I can do that administratively, but I want to make sure we get a consensus from the board. I have no issue with doing that and just providing that spot back over at the PD.
Well, but I want to, the position was allocated. The position was part of the budget. So I want to know where that position has gone. So I want to hear back because I want to see where that position has gone. I don't want to just add another position because we've already been paying for it. So that's my reason. I'm 100% want to figure out how to re-add it, but I don't want to re-add the position that we've already been paying for, that was already allocated. And now where did that position go? Who did we hire in place of? Did we hire a detective? Did we hire somebody to sit at a computer? Like, I just want to know where that went. So it doesn't have to be tonight, but
Yep.
that's my position on that.
Let's get back to that in a
Yeah.
future meeting so staff has enough time to research it. Thank you so much, everybody. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right, have a good night, everybody. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you to all of our residents and staff for joining us this evening.